Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. We are coming out of Thanksgiving, going into the remainder of the holiday season, that Christmas and New Year's time. And so happy holidays to everybody that is watching this. This time of the year, guys, is a busy time of the year for me here. But it's a good busy, right? It's a time of the year that I'm actually able to reconnect or catch up, if you will, with a lot of clients that I've already worked with around the country, and I get to meet new and or potential clients, folks that are shopping this time of the year, if you will. No holiday season pun intended there, but shopping for some ideas, right? Looking whether that's something that they want to implement themselves on their privately owned property. Maybe they've got a lease and there's just something missing, right? Or they just want to take maybe that, that huntability and that approach to the next level. That gets us to this time of the year. So a bunch of different places that I get, where folks are at in their pursuit, right? But this time of the year is when a lot of that bookings come in. Now, I feel very blessed that usually going into the following booking season, I'm about 20 to 30% full from last year, right? So, for example, going into the 2025 habitat season, client season, I brought somewhere around that 20 clients forward into this year. So weekends fill up the quickest, right? I daisy chain all my clients together. So what happens is if I leave here from Central Kentucky and I might be on the road a couple of weeks at a time, right? I go from here, let's just say I go to the north, I go up through Indiana, Kentucky, Indiana, maybe hit Ohio on that trip, go into Michigan, work my way around through the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, back down through Wisconsin, maybe hit Illinois on the backside on the way back to the home farm here. I'm on the road a lot, but I'm really blessed, guys. So this time of the year, I always like to say thanks, right, to a lot of the clients out there that I've been able to work with. Even if you haven't booked my service, if it was something that you just reached out and I was able to help you kind of sort some things out that you were battling within, it's all a blessing. I don't look at something we're going to touch on today, guys. I often get this question about competition and who's doing what. I don't look at anybody as competition because I kind of just try to do my own thing, and maybe I do some things similar to some folks. Maybe I do a lot of things different. But where my strategies come from, guys, are experience. So I learn on every property. I don't know everything. When I get to a point that I think I know everything, I'll probably retire, because that's going to be the end of the road, and it's kind of like your hunting career, I guess you could say, or where a lot of folks are within their hunting realm. We're always learning, right? And if you put blinders on and think you know everything, the clients today won't benefit, the clients tomorrow won't benefit the clients today, right? And they just, every year I find something different on a piece of property that resembles something else, and I use something from on that property that I did a couple years ago on something to help those folks out. Every property is different, but there's a lot of similarities as far as how the whitetail deer navigate around the whitetail range, and that's something we're going to talk about today, guys. So first and foremost, right, thank you for the last couple of years. It's a saturated market, guys. It's not a secret. The last couple of years especially, a lot of stuff going on in this industry, and a lot of newcomers, a lot of marketing strategies, all that's tied in, right? Everyone's got their own idea, and hopefully everybody is successful. But I do want to send the message that I know that there are a lot of options out there, and I feel blessed that you guys have chosen to watch this video or follow this channel, and or possibly have reached out and went to the next step and booked my services. It means a lot, right? So I know that there's a lot of folks out there doing what I'm doing in a roundabout way, right? You got a lot of choices. So, and I do appreciate that. So let's just dive into this one. It's a video that I do every year to help folks kind of, whether it's my services that you land on or if it's someone else because of timing or a fit that you think someone else maybe has a little bit of niche or whatever the case is, right? I hope the best for everybody, but I'm going to go over, like I do every year, how to get your mind right and what you should be looking for when you hire a whitetail habitat consultant, right? A hunting consultant to come on your property and help you get things in line. And then whether you build it or I build it or they build it or whoever's involved, the project is going in the right direction. And it's a very, very comfortable feeling, guys, knowing that you have a end goal in mind, right? So how to hire, right? How to hire that perfect person. When I started this, guys, so give you a little quick background, is my background is all pretty much in management. I was blessed enough, born and raised in a family-owned business where we did all state highway and county road work, all excavation stuff for years. My dad was a general foreman for some big asphalt paving companies, went on his own. And when that rolled in, we had a family business. My dad and my uncle were together. Eventually, they ended up having both of separate businesses. Both live in Alaska now, and worked for a great company up there years down the road. Make a long story short, when I was in that, high school, early college years, I guess you could say, right? I felt very blessed. Looking back at it now, I really learned a lot, not only on the excavation side as far as an operator and how to get a job completed, but also taking a crew and managing things. So I had multiple things going on at one time, and all the way from the seat of the excavation and then learning some business part of it, right? So the connection I think that I have with a lot of folks is I'm a well-rounded person, right? There's a lot of folks out there, and like I said, guys, none of this, I don't want to poke holes in anybody because I'm not that guy. The older I get, I just take myself out of all that drama, right? And I think there's probably a lot of you out there that are in that situation, no matter where you're at in the the age spectrum is the way the world is today. I think a lot of us just want to get away from the nonsense, right? So I think I'm a well-rounded person, right? And I think that's something that you need to look for in, whether it's me or someone else, someone that has experience doing certain things or a multitude of things that it's going to take to get that property to be what it needs to be, right? I find ever so often that folks hire someone just because it's the flashy thing to do, or the social media star or YouTube star or whatever the case is, not taking anything from anybody, because that comes with a lot of work, obviously, and they've earned those subscribers and they've earned that time. But sometimes what happens is, guys, is you have to look at the big picture, right? There are things out there that certain consultants offer that they do in like a low pressured state situation that I would never do or never encourage someone to do in a high pressured state. On the other side of it, if you get someone like myself that was born and raised and hunted, worked in that high pressured situation. So from being born and raised in Lake County, Michigan, it's the pinnacle of high pressure, right? Then going into a guiding situation where we ran, let's just say 200 hunters a year, 250 hunters a year, on, anywhere between 7 to 10,000 acres. A lot of pressure, right? How do you manage that pressure? What can you get away with? What can you not? And I really believe there's a lot of folks out there that are in low pressured areas trying to make those strategies work in high pressure situations, and they're actually doing a disservice. So not that they're not good people, not that they're not good hunters, not that they haven't filled a wall full of great bucks, because there's a lot of them that have. It's just that personal connection that you have to look for. How does that connect to you? Who's going to be there after you get that design done? What's the plan? What's the long-term plan that we're going to touch on, right? All of this together is something that I feel very blessed with, guys. I try to go above and beyond to be there after the fact, after the design, right? When you have need, who can you call? Who do you have in your corner? When you book a service, are you getting the person that you see on the YouTube channel, or are you getting someone else, right? And nothing degrading about that. I'm just saying those are things to look for, because that's kind of what's happening in the industry. Big groups coming together, say this as professional as I possibly can, because there's some pros to it. Putting big communities together, which is great, don't get me wrong, but if you put 5 to 10 people under one business in this industry, my fear is everybody has a different way of designing. So what are you actually watching on YouTube, or what are you actually watching, and what are you actually getting when you hire that service? So that's that personal connection, right? What makes you feel comfortable? So if it's not me, best of luck with someone else. I really mean that, right? I'm not a fit for everybody, right? There is a large amount of people that understand my service, but there are people that I get calls all the time, and they say, well, you're not the one for me, because I don't believe that I should not be allowed to hunt my food plots. And my response to that, guys, is this: I'm hired. A consultant should be hired to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. I could very well fill up my calendar real quick by just having a phone call with people, asking them what they want, going to their property and designing it the way they want, and leaving. It's very easy, but it's not what you need to hear. I'm there to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. If those two align, that's perfect. A lot of times, though, I have to be the bearer of bad news that goes in and weeds that stuff, pulls that stuff out of the weeds, brings it to the surface, and explains to you why that shouldn't happen, or why that's not going to work, or why you're setting yourself up for failure by trying to hunt those, overpressure those food plots, your access, getting into a farm, out of the farm, all of that stuff, right? So the reason I touch on that is because that's something to watch that's out there. A lot of that is being done, right? Not just the food plots, and I'm just picking on food plots, right? But the whole fact, the backing of that is it's a connection that it's a marketing strategy, right? Very easy to treat someone that is viewing this like you as someone that's buying a used car. If you walk onto a used car, I used to sell cars years ago, trucks at a dealership, and I'm here to tell you the way they train that mentality is talk less, listen more, which I try to do as I'm getting older, right? Talk less, listen more, and let that person sell themselves a car. It's very easy. We try to, in that world, this used car salesman, let's say, or car salesman in general, tries to sell you what they want. And it's just the opposite. They tell you to let them sell their own vehicle. Let them tell you what they want. You go out and show them that's the vehicle that you said you wanted, done deal, and then it's sold before you even get really involved, right? That doesn't work in the whitetail world. And the reason for that is you have to take some of them experiences, you have to take some of that knowledge, the way each person hunts, how they've hunted in the past, what their future goals are. Is there kids? Is there grandkids involved? Is it bow hunting only? Is it a gun farm? How many acres are you dealing with? There's so many things, so you have to get involved, right? So that's where it comes with being a professional and being able to tell people that. I'll share this situation with you guys. There was And when I first heard it, I thought, boy, that's really uncommon. Now I hear it all the time. I had a gentleman reach out to me last year, or I'm sorry, 3 years ago, was probably the first time I heard this. Had a gentleman reach out, and he said that he had hired some, not naming any names, but some big name. And when he came out, he was telling them that going over, food plot strategies and how to, hunt certain areas and kind of weeding things out. And he asked him, where would you hang the tree stand? And the hands went up and he said, oh, I can't tell you what stand to hang in, because what happens is if I tell you to hang a stand in that tree and you don't harvest a buck out of that stand, then I'm the bad guy. It's like, maybe it's because of my guiding. I don't know what that connection is with me, guys, but if I can't tell you what tree to hang that stand in, why am I there, right? So if that stand just doesn't work and we need to tweak it just a little bit, I'm all about it. But I try to go the extra mile to walk to the stands. Now, we don't get to walk to every one of them because, more property, the more, more we have to see. Sometimes the spot just sells itself from the contour in the pinch, and we can see it from 100 yards, something like that, so we can make good time. But a lot of those guys, especially smaller acreage, I like to go to the tree, wrap a ribbon around it, explain to you how to get in and out of it, explain to you why I picked that tree. And there's other guys that do what I do. So that experience I told you actually is something now that I've heard multiple times. I was just told that the other day by a client that he had that same experience, that they do come to the property. It's a large amount of money. There's no plan written out. It's an overview plan. They're not designing it as they go like I do. And that's what they relayed to me, right? So they relayed it to me. I'm relaying it to you, that was one of the high points that's why they had my service or elected to hire my service, is because I was designing as I went. And by the end of it, the design is pretty much done, guys, because we're touching and feeling all of it, versus walking with no iPad, no anything, nothing, and going back to the truck or going back to the, 2 or 3 days later, motel. I've even heard up to a month. What happens is, all of them, sadly, guys, all of them designs end up looking the same. Because if you can't design a property as you go, my personal feeling, if you can't design a property as you go and put the pin like this is where you need, and this stuff comes quick, and then put it there, and if something has to be tweaked, it has to be tweaked. You got to look at it. You don't want a cookie cutter situation, right? My designs, guys, you could probably pick my designs out of some folks because of some stuff I use, a transition, corridors, my colorations, stuff like that. But you will never find, 2 of my properties will never look the same. They just can't. It just isn't. It's not. It just shouldn't happen. Sadly, it happens a lot. So, like I said, not poking holes in anybody, not pointing fingers at anybody, just sharing some stories with you on stuff to look for, and the reason why I try to make that personal connection with folks. And I think that's the biggest personal connection. So with me, guys, you're not only getting a design, you're getting a habitat book, and you're getting a habitat plan specifically for your farm. So that habitat book kind of covers a lot of my strategies and knowledges that I use, and how-tos and hinge cutting if you're a hinge cut candidate, native grasses, food plot strategies, all of that, planting trees, liquid fertilizers, all that stuff, right? As an overview. Then I specifically make you a habitat plan for your property. That's 5, 6, 8 pages, whatever that depending on the size of the acreage. I make that specifically for your farm. So you have, at the end of that, guys, there's a phases I break it into. So if I own that property, if I owned your property, this is how I would go about building what I just laid out for you, right? So when you get halfway through of 6 phases, you're at phase 3, you don't look back and say, I just cost myself a bunch of time and a bunch of money. So that's the way I do it, with a bunch of other stuff thrown in there. That's a connection, right? That's the connection that I strive to make with my clients. So let's go to number 2 here. Not your region only. I get this a lot, guys. I actually had a past client of mine, just tell me this the other night on the phone, that the reason that he went with me only is because I was in his region and I knew the area. Well, that's great. I appreciate that. But I actually mentioned to him is that you should not hire someone just because they're within your area. Now that was great, because just like many other clients that I get a year, they're in Kentucky, whether they're 10 minutes from me or 3 hours from me, they're here, right? But they don't. The common thing that I get hired or my service offers is not just because I'm in the local area. It's because I've been all over the whitetail range. So something to think about, guys, is someone that's in Iowa. I can think of many, right? Great hunters. They know that area. They know the dirt. They know the food plot programs. They know the weather. They know how to get in and out of farms. It's great. I really believe that. There's a lot of great hunters out there. There's a lot of great folks that are actually consulting that are out there. But can they take those experiences and that design or that mentality, like I said, and put it in a high pressure state situation? And sadly, that's when it gets a little sticky, right? The way I look at deer in general, guys, the whitetail deer, the way they navigate and they want to navigate around a community via contour, via edge, habitat, all of this stuff, the way that their nose works is not any different in Texas than it is in Maine, right? It's not any pressure or any different in Michigan than it is in Kentucky. The difference is when you put the human with the deer hunter, how do you react to that? So is there things that you could do in Kansas, 25,000 deer hunters or bow hunters, right? The state of Iowa, 68,000. The Kentucky, 127,000 deer harvested. Michigan, 600,000 deer harvested, right? 1 million deer hunters. Is there something that I would do that you could do, maybe get away with some hunting, some food plots, or being a little intrusive on a Kansas property or a Iowa property? You could, but I won't. And the reason for that is I know if you implement those strategies, at some point you're going to implement high pressured situations. And at the end of the day, guys, they will react the same to high pressure, right? They will react the same if they know what you're up to, they know the hunting season. You want to be that community or that property within that community that is doing something different. So in other words, if you're watching this and you own an Iowa property, I can guarantee you that most of you watching this, or most of you that hunt Iowa, you wait 4 years to get a tag, lease a property, whatever the case is, I guarantee you, if you took a law of averages in the state of Iowa and or the state of Kansas, if you did a survey around you, probably 80 to 90% of folks are sitting on top of food plots, because that's what the Outdoor Channel says that you should be able to do, right? Does it work? Maybe, maybe not. You want to be the farm, you want to be the hunter that's not doing that, because if you aren't in that bubble, if you are doing something different, right, those deer will seek you. At some point in that season, when that pressure spectrum gets to a peak, that pinnacle, the gig is up, let's say, right, in these other communities. Whether you're hunting 20 acres or 2,000 acres, they will seek your farm. That is the goal. All the other stuff will fall into place, right? But if you're doing what everybody else is doing, hunting does early, hunting your food plots, pressure, all of this is the same, your property won't stand out. That's my job, to help you understand. If you go from a high pressured state, you can go anywhere. If you're from Michigan, or you're from Wisconsin, or you're from Minnesota or New York, parts of Kentucky, high pressured, you can go anywhere in the nation. Don't let anybody ever tell you this. You can go anywhere in the nation Alabama's another one. Parts of Georgia, Mississippi. A lot of deer numbers. You can go anywhere in the nation and harvest mature whitetail deer. The reason for that is you're used to knowing what you can't do. Now, a guy from Iowa, a guy from Kansas, a guy from Illinois, parts of Illinois, tries to go to Michigan, tries to go to Minnesota and implement those invasive strategies. It ain't gonna work. That's the reason you flip on the Outdoor Channel. How many of these big name celebrities are hunting a 40 acres or an 80 acres in Michigan? Not very many, right? So let that kind of think next time that you hire somebody. Should I hire somebody that's local? Maybe. Should I hire someone that has been around the entire the entire whitetail range? Probably. So number 3, after the design, I touched on this a little bit before, guys. After the design is something that I strived. It didn't take me very long knowing when I got into this that I wanted to be this situation. So my goal when I first started, sharing a little history with you here, guys, right? When I started, my goal was I wanted to do 20 properties a year, and I wanted to design and build those same 20 properties. I learned real quick that a lot of folks want to build their own property, right? But my goal was through that is so when you hired someone, you had, whether I built the whole thing or just did a tree, a couple days of tree work on it with you, some bedding strategies, maybe I was involved in the food plot planning strategies, whatever the case was, getting your access correct. I wanted to have my hands on that with you so I had more time to get the education part of it down so you felt more comfortable and you knew you had somebody in your corner. That was my strategy because there was nobody else doing that, right? But I learned real quick that I could help more people being on the road in doing more designs, let's say. So like the last couple of years, I'm in that, anywhere between 50 to 65 designs. I'm involved in about a dozen builds. Last year we did 4 kind of turnkey properties. I did about a dozen other projects that I was on the properties building, helping them do tree work, stuff like that. So covering, a larger amount of folks across a larger amount of, the whitetail range. But at the end of the day, I go back to that where I started with making sure that connection's always there. So if you get a property going, you go to make a phone call, there's no worse feeling in the world. Like, I just did a bedding area. Did I go overboard or did I not do enough? Or how does it look? Did I cut the right trees? Did I not? And go to call somebody and there's nobody there. Sadly, there's a reason. A lot of reasons, usually. Now, I'm not saying every reason's like this, but sadly, the reason for that, guys, is there's a lot of folks doing what I'm doing that have never built a property. There's a lot of folks that maybe it's an age thing, maybe they just got into this, but have they built a property? Have they built a property, owned a property, been successful on a property, sold that property, did it again, did it multiple times, done it in multiple different states? I hope so, but that's not usually what is happening, right? So if there is someone watching this that is a consultant already or looking to be a consultant, if there was one thing that I could tell you is don't pull the trigger on this situation until you have the experience and the knowledge with the saw, with creating this stuff, so you don't do more harm to a property than good. So, and the reason I say that, because I've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt, right? When I first started, I look back at some properties now thinking I should have did this different, I should have did that different, and it all comes with time. So the first property, guys, a little bit of history here, right? The first property that I ever designed that I worked on and designed, partly designed, was in 2001. It was actually a client of mine that actually hunted with me at the lodge, and we went and I did some tree work and started getting into it and thought, man, I really love this side of it. And then over the time, I had a trucking company, worked as a service manager for John Deere and the power sports industry for Yamaha and Polaris dealer. And so I was always doing this on the side, right? Thinking, man, wouldn't it be great to do this full time? 2017, my kids and I raised show hogs, and I blew my back out doing chores one day. I've had a bad back since I was like 16 because of an accident that I had, and it gave out. That was the end of it. I picked up a grain bag, it blew out. 2017, off my feet, back surgery, and I knew right then and there, if I was going to do this full time, why not a better time, right, than to start right there. So out of work for a year, real tender on my feet for 6 months kind of thing, it was a long haul. Had a lot of time to put this all together. That's what got me to the full time, and I've been full time since 2017. Haven't looked back, guys. So I feel that had the good Lord probably had his hand in a lot of that, right? And the reason for that is because there was a lot of things that I needed to see and do myself to get to a point where I could share that with other folks, right? Because let's be honest, these trees don't grow back overnight, right? You can tornado something too much, and you're actually sending deer the other way instead of collecting deer. You're actually making a deterrent instead of an attraction. Making a habitat that's too heavy is doing nothing but possibly, inviting more coyotes to the plate. How to put a stump one way so you don't invite a coyote den. All of this stuff, right? And what I see is now it's a very flashy industry, and there's a lot of these things that aren't being covered. I'll share something with you here, guys, and like I said, no finger pointing at anybody. I'm just sharing a bunch of knowledge here with you and a bunch of experiences. It's very similar every year. So I'm just going to say 20 to 25 clients a year that I'm able to help or call me have had somebody else work on their property, and they went to call them to ask them how to do that, and they didn't know, or they didn't, not that I know everything, not that you're not going to have the answers for everything, but they had never built a property themselves. So where I'm going with this is, when they called me, was the design horrible? Well, maybe not. Maybe I would have did some things different. There's some properties, guys, that I've got to, that the design wasn't bad. But if they don't implement that design, it's all for none. If you design a property for someone like my son just getting out of the military, or just in the military, right, that's at the prime of their life, you can do a lot of cool things, get them in deep to some areas, right? What if that client's 75 years old, right? You have to tailor make that property to their needs, but maybe tweak some things that they're not accustomed to doing. Don't just make it easy, make it better. So all of that fits into that. But at the end of the day, guys, 20 clients a year call me that have had somebody else work on their property, and it didn't get built because they didn't have any backing. The phone never got returned calls. They don't know what to do because that person was onto somebody else. I'm just not that guy. So, and I don't encourage anybody, like I said, that's watching that, to do that, because that's a huge hole in this industry. So the personal connection, one of those things, watch for that when you're hiring somebody. So this one here, guys, number 4, not the cheapest, not the most expensive. And I'm not just saying that because that's where I'm at. I think there's a lot to be said for this. Cheapest, guys, that's a flash in the pan situation. Here we go again. How do I know that? Been there, done that, bought the t-shirt, right? I used to separate my properties with acreage. I used to do multiple people a year when I first started it. Smaller properties, why not do 2 a day? And I got away from that, guys. The smaller the property is, the more that person actually benefits. I tell each and every one of my clients this. The fact of the matter is, the smaller your property is, the more that you get out of me being there than someone that's got 160 acres plus, right? The way I do mine, anything over 160 could take me 2 days. I've done a lot of 500s that I've done in a day, because half of it's open. Everyone's different, right? But if it's a cheap situation, you have to look at that. One of the big things is designing properties from afar, never being there, making an aerial design, never putting boots on the ground. That one you gotta watch, right? I have had so many folks, I think because a lot of folks are wanting to do some of the habitat work themselves, and that's great because that means you're watching the channel or channels and learning. That's great because you're making whitetail property better, right? That's the whole piece of this. That's why this information is free on this channel. But it has to be a recommendation, not a set in stone situation. So what I get is a lot of folks are putting this on there. The problem with it is trying to make access across something that can't have access across the swamps. Making this chore list that's too tall for that landowner. So what I do is I am offering a service now that I can actually look at a property with you, go over it. There's a program that I have that I invite people here to the farm, so you can go out and touch and feel that, see what I've got, what I've done, how I've done things, and then implement that on your own property. Because it is, guys, it's a great feeling to look at something, take some ideas, build your own situation, implement it, and see it work, or see it fail and make it better. There's a great piece of that. But don't think that you can take a service that's half the amount of, like my service, for example, the cost, and get something that's set in stone from someone that's never been there and tells you that's exactly what's got to happen in that spot, because it doesn't happen that way. Every property is so different. It can get you close, it can give you good ideas, but it's never the perfect situation. So where does your budget, right? What's your budget allow? Maybe that's all you need, the general idea, right? So I get it, but look at what you're asking for, right? Are you asking for just a general idea, or are you asking for a set in stone? This is how it happens. This is why it needs to happen, because my boots are here with you and I'm actually touching and feeling this stuff. So I'm not saying that's completely wrong. I'm just saying careful what you ask for, because what you ask for sometimes is what you get, right? So the most expensive is this, guys. This is the touchy one. Most expensive, kind of, I get a lot of folks, guys. The sad part of this is I get a lot of folks that have done this, and then they're having my service. So instead of having my service or someone else similar, they've got twice, 3 times the amount of money, because this guy is probably twice the amount of me. This guy's half, so now you're twice or 3 times more the amount of money that it would have just hired someone like myself, me, or someone else, right? Why that worries me, guys, is this. A lot of the situations right now, if you hire that service, who are you getting, right? Are you going to get the guy that actually is telling you these things on these YouTube channels as service, or are you going to get someone that works for him? Something to keep in mind. If you have a personal connection with who you're watching on YouTube, but are you going to have a personal connection with who's going to come to the farm? Maybe, maybe not. Most expensive, guys, sometimes is, I don't want to say it's only a money situation, because it's not. There's a lot of folks that are more expensive than me that are great people, have a great service. I'm not tearing that down. What I'm saying is some of that comes with, because there's a lot of overhead, right? There's a lot of other things that they need to charge that for to cover certain things. And a lot of times this situation happens is they don't do the amount of clients, so they don't want to be on the road as much, so they charge more, right? Which, I guess, in a way, maybe that's smart. But on the other hand, it doesn't give you that well-rounded person that we spoke of to begin with. So if you have the personal connection with someone that's the most expensive, great. If you have the connection with the guy that's the cheapest and you think that's what you need, great. If you have that connection with me, I'm right in the middle of the road, and I do a larger amount of clients. I'm on the road longer. I'm single. My kids are grown up. I can do that. A lot of folks can't do that, right? and I completely understand that. But there's a person out there, guys, at the end of it, number 5 here, right, that's not on here. There is a person for each and every one of you. I daisy chain my clients together, so when I leave here, I might be on the road for 2-3 weeks, right? Then here for a week, getting paperwork done, getting work done on my farm or my leases here in Michigan, or here in Kentucky, Michigan, Wisconsin, wherever I'm at, a property that I'm working on, or going and building, getting involved in the building process and doing some turnkey stuff. There's a person for everyone, and I hope that some of these things kind of brought some of that to the forefront, maybe some questions that you had, because I really enjoy what I do, guys. I love what I do. I really don't work a day. I mean, there's some days that we spend a lot of time in the timber, and especially when we're building properties in the summer and stuff like that. It's a lot of work, but I enjoy it. I love it. And that, I hope, reflects to you guys as the consumer or someone looking for someone to hire to help on your property. So, to each his own, right? Especially the holiday season. I don't want this to be a negative thing. I want this to be a positive video. And I'm just highlighting with you, not pointing fingers at anybody. That's cheaper, more expensive. I'm just telling you what I've experienced and what my clients talk to me about, the reasons that they choose a service like me instead of the other services, or why they didn't go with me and they went with someone else. I have those too, right? Like I said, I shared that with you because I don't believe in sitting on top of the food plots. Not that you can't cover the food plots with a gun, but you're not sitting on top of them. You'll never find me designing a property with a tree stand in the state of Kentucky. That happens a lot, over top of a corn pile. It's not going to happen, right? There's so much more that a property can offer. Am I against feeding? Absolutely not. I do it myself. Am I against food plot, shooting out to a food plot with a gun? Absolutely not. It's a strategy thing, right? So that's me. Some people like that, some people don't, right? So is there a person out there for you that fits that'll probably design something that is exactly what you're looking for? Absolutely. So I hope this one, guys, sheds some light. It's a video that it can be controversial, I guess. It's not the point. Maybe I offended some people by saying some things. Maybe I didn't. I'm sorry if I did. But at some point, I have to market my own business, kind of tell you why I do things the way I do it, connect with some folks. But at the end of the day, the biggest reason I do this video each and every year is to help you, the viewer, understand what to look for when you're trying to hire someone, whether that's me or whether that's someone else. So we've got some really cool things, guys, coming down the pipe here that I'm working on, and there's some delicate pieces that I'm trying to touch on and do. No, I'm not hiring a bunch of people to do some designing for me. I'm not putting on this big crew, but there's some things that we might be doing as far as having sales representatives. I'm looking at hiring someone to do some of the social media stuff. I'm looking to have somebody get involved with some editing and some sales stuff that we've got going on. A lot of irons in the fire, guys. So looking forward to the 2025 season, and surely appreciate each and every one of you. I hope this video came across in a positive light, guys, and look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thanks, guys.